emotionally out of control sometimes? Like you just can't seem to get a grip on yourself and you're unsure why? When you're around other people, does your energy drain easily and you seem to almost absorb what they're going through? Do you feel emotions so intensely? Do you have a hard time making decisions for yourself? Well, if any of this rings true for you, then I might be able to help you, so stick around. Hello friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Yelena if we haven't met already, but if we have, then welcome back. I am very excited because today we're going to be discussing a topic that's very important to me, and that is the empath and codependency dynamic. And this was something I wished growing up that I would have had knowledge on myself. I think it's really unfortunate that the school systems do not teach anything about EQ, which is emotional intelligence. They may now, but when I was growing up, they sure didn't. And how can we expect our parents to teach us this when they weren't taught it themselves? Maybe some people got lucky, but for myself, it was something that I definitely had to struggle with. But what I did learn is that sometimes the biggest downfall or biggest challenge in your life, your curse that you think is your curse, actually becomes your gift later on, and you can become empowered and help other people get through the exact same thing. So as I suffered mostly throughout my entire life, even into my 20s, I came into my 30s and have now come to some bit of an understanding on this. So in this video today, we're going to be discussing how to identify what an empath is, and if you are one. We'll also be discussing the good and bad sides to being an empath, and then we're going to discuss the codependent and how to identify if you're one of those. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging there. We are going to find some solutions as well in this video to help us become that empowered empath we all wish to be. So make sure that you stick around to the end of the video. But let's go ahead and get into it. First, we're going to start with learning to identify what an empath even is. And this was a big part of my spiritual awakening process, was learning that I was an empath. Now, empath is tied in with the word empathy. And it's your ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and really feel the way that they feel. And this is different in a sense from sympathy, where we just are able to understand maybe what somebody else is going through, but we don't actually feel it ourselves. That is the gift that the empath holds, is their ability to actually become a channel through which this energy of another person flows. So you can actually tap into and feel their pain, their emotions, their feelings, which makes you a metaphorical sponge. And this can either be very empowering in your life, but usually the path of the empath starts out being disempowered, which means that we are drained by these energies that we take in. We have a very hard time making sense of it. And a lot of times we go through life wondering why we feel so emotionally out of control, because we can't decipher what is our energy and what the heck are other people's energies, which can be a very confusing dynamic. And I'm sure you understand that if you were somebody who has gone through this or who may be currently going through this right now. That little piece alone can be extremely empowering to recognize that you might not be as emotionally out of control as you believed, and that this is something that you can gain control of. I know a lot of my life I thought, man, I'm pretty crazy. But what I started to identify is that when I would be alone, I would be a lot more comfortable in my energy field. I was actually very calm, my mind wasn't racing, and I wasn't feeling depressed, anxious, out of sorts. And then when I would go around other people, I would wonder why I could not seem to control myself. My emotions would be up and down. It was almost like an out of control roller coaster ride that I could not seem to control. I was spiraling. But then I started to realize that I was picking up on all of these things from other people. I was absorbing them and allowing them to dictate and control the direction of my life. Now, there are different types of empaths. Some empaths can really feel other people's emotions. Some empaths can actually feel other people's pain and sicknesses. So if you are around somebody who is sick to their stomach, you may begin to take on the feeling of being sick to your stomach. And a lot of times we can't make sense of why we feel the way that we do. And that is a number one big indicator that you are an empath, when you're unable to make sense as to why you feel this way. I remember there was one day I was bartending, which is a very difficult environment when I was a disempowered empath to be in, because I was picking up everything from everyone around me. But I remember watching a young lady that came in for lunch, and she was clearly disheveled, very emotional. And as I was viewing her, I legitimately got a ball in my throat. You know when you get so upset you're about to cry and you just are trying to hold it back, so you get that big ball in your throat because there's obviously an energetic blockage and you need to cry it out. I felt what she was feeling. And then, after a couple moments went by, I had looked over and she was on the phone bawling her eyes out. So I knew from that point, obviously, what is going on? I don't know why, but I'm picking up what's going on with this girl. And as I advanced on my spiritual path, I began to learn that these were just little indicators showing me that I should trust what I'm experiencing, that this is not mine. This is clearly hers, but maybe there's something within me that I am able to pick up on this. And I started to learn from that point forward. All right, so we've already touched a little bit on why being an empath can be bad at first when you're disempowered, but I want to touch on this just a tad bit more. I believe that when you are an empath and you feel out of control and you don't have the knowledge to empower yourself to know what is truly going on, you can spiral out of control in your own life. It begins to drain you emotionally and drain you physically. You will begin to physically feel fatigued, not able to communicate with other people, not able to do just the simplest of life tasks that you're expected to do. This can begin to affect your relationships, affect your work, affect your love life, literally affect every aspect of you, and can even bring about physical discomforts as well as disease that can manifest in the body. A lot of people go on believing that they have anxiety issues and then getting prescribed medications like Xanax or Clonopin, which was something that I experienced myself. I used whatever known to man to cover up the intense feelings I was experiencing, not realizing that a lot of the environments at that time that I was putting myself in were causing me to pick up on so much stimulus that was around me. I was experiencing what's called empath overload. Because I was feeling so out of control and intense, I would use alcohol and all of those drugs to try and cover this up, because I had no idea what was wrong with me and I was seeking comfort and I was seeking to not feel anything. And what can be really sad about experiencing this on such a deep level is that empaths will tend to completely turn their gift off, even if they don't use things to numb themselves, and they will become actually hardened to other people and other people's emotions, and they won't pick up on anything at all, and they become the opposite of empathetic and the opposite of having sympathy for other people, and can become emotionally turned off, which is not the point of why they have this gift in the first place. So why is being an empath a gift, you're probably wondering? It helps us to become better mothers, better nurturers and caretakers, better nurses and healers, and maybe life coaches or therapists, or just better friends and family members altogether. When we have the ability to truly empathize with another, to really feel what another person is going through and truly understand them on that level, we have almost a psychic sense of what another person needs before that other person may even understand what they need or when they need it. And this can help us to really not step in necessarily as a savior or try to fix another person, but to really hold space and be there for them. Maybe when they need somebody to listen to them or whatever it might be, you can play that role. But we'll discuss this even more once we get into the Empowered Empath section of the video. But first, we have to discover what a codependent is. And I spent a lot of my time in codependent friendships, codependent relationships with family members, and a lot of people that I've dated throughout my life as well. Now, one important thing to understand is that codependency actually stems from things that occurred in our childhood. And I'll give you an example of just a one-off dynamic. It doesn't have to be this that caused it, but imagine yourself as a child in a family dynamic where you had one or two parents that were very control oriented. Maybe this parent was almost dictator-like, expected certain behavior out of you. You had to be perfect. Maybe the house had to be spick and span, and you were expected to clean and have everything orderly. And there were just a lot of expectations placed on you. So your surroundings are very important at this time in your life because they mold the person that you become as an adult. So what this is subconsciously putting into the child's mind, and the parents honestly, they might not have any idea that what they're doing is going to affect this child growing up, because this might have been how they were raised. So we don't want to be mad at our parents or anything like that, because a lot of times they don't even realize what they're doing, and maybe they think that they're helping you to become a strong, individual. There's always a loving, caring intention behind why everybody does everything that they do. So we must first remember that. What this is doing, it is putting a little chip, if you will, into our subconscious mind, telling us that we do not deserve love unless we are perfect. So we grow up with this idea in our mind. And what happens is we have a sense of self, which is the way that we view ourselves based off of our life experiences and everything that has happened to us. And this is referred to as the false self, because that really is not who we are, right? All of our life situations and everything that's happened to us that has molded us when we were very impressionable at that young age. And a lot of times people have a very fragile sense of self. So they question themselves, they don't have a lot of self-esteem, and are unable to make choices for themselves. They look for validation outside of themselves. They always need somebody to tell them that they're doing a good job, or looking for, these words of affirmation to make them feel more comfortable. And because of this, we begin to have this dynamic where we rely on other people for these things. And this, in a sense, breeds codependent relationships, which is when your authentic self, which is the opposite of the false self, is not in the driver's seat. Now, because we have this very blurry view of our authentic self and who we really are, and we need somebody else to validate our worthiness, then we become very dependent on these relationships, and we will do anything to keep them in place, right? Because that is validating this false sense of self. So we do things like people-pleasing behaviors, and this can be very detrimental to our lives, and it can cause very unhealthy dynamics in our relationships that we tend to repeat. And if you look back at the relationships that you had with your parents or whoever, was in charge of your life when you were younger, then you might begin to see a correlation of a lot of relationships that you had as an adult. Now, this doesn't just have to be love relationships. It could be even relationships that you have with bosses or teachers, friends, whatever it may be. One aspect of the relationship dynamic that really rings true for me, and I have it so vividly in my mind a few times when this has happened to me, was when you are around other people who might be emotionally disheveled. Maybe they're having a really bad day, or they're just really upset, and you're around them and it clearly makes you very uncomfortable, right? And because we have this lost sense of self, and we begin to feel emotionally out of control ourselves, but we have no idea and we're not able to make sense as to the fact that we're picking up on the other person's emotions. We will do anything in our power to make this other person feel better so that we in return can make ourselves feel better. And a lot of times this whole dynamic is completely unconscious. We don't even realize that that's what we're doing. And if you are the type of person like myself in the past who tended to play the role of the savior, where we step in and try to fix things for other people, we take on a little bit too much, more than we should, then this is probably something that will ring true to you. But in all actuality, this is kind of a selfish dynamic because we are stepping in to make ourselves feel more comfortable, when in return, this person is kind of missing out on the ability to like deal with this thing on their own, when we should really allow them to handle it. But as an empowered empath, like we discussed earlier, we can just hold space for that person. So we accept the fact that we feel uncomfortable, but we allow another person to feel uncomfortable as well. And it opens up this beautiful space of healing where we understand ourselves. We are also there holding space for this other person to go through what they're going through and learn the lessons that they need to learn without us trying to control everything. And, taking part in this selfish role, we now step back and become a healer, or become a better friend, or become more of a nurturer. And if they do ask us for our advice or anything like that, of course we can step in from there. So now that we have a better understanding of what an empath is and what a codependent is, I'm going to give you just a few little ideas of how to identify exactly if you are a codependent or not. First and foremost, like we spoke about, feeling out of control and unable to regulate your emotions, especially when you're around other people, being unable to make sense of why you feel the way that you do. So there's no outside circumstances in your life that would make you feel full of anxiety, out of control, out of sorts. Number two is the fact that we feel very preoccupied with the other, which, whether that be the partner, the friend, or whatever role they're playing in this dynamic. And this could be anything from believing that their behaviors have everything to do with you. Like if they don't text you back right away or something, you might think, what did I do? Are they mad at me? Are they going to break up with me? Oh my gosh, everything revolves around you. So this is the dynamic of you being at the center of everything, not realizing that, this other person has their own life. They have their own things going on that probably have nothing to do with you in the first place. But all in all, we are very enmeshed in what is going on with the other person, completely watching their behaviors, their emotions, every reaction that they have, instead of focusing it back on ourselves. So we completely lose that sense of self-awareness. Number three would be not able to make your own decisions in life, being a very indecisive person. We are always looking outside of ourselves for validation and answers from other people. So for instance, you might have to call one of your parents to figure out how to do something, or if you have to make some type of life decision, you always have to instill the advice of another person because you absolutely have no idea what you're supposed to do because you don't really truly know your authentic self. Number four, you may need constant praise, admiration from other people. You're always looking outside of yourself for something to make you feel more comfortable, something to make you sure of yourself because you don't hold that within you already. And finally, but just be aware that these aren't all the signifiers. I'm just keeping my list very small. Always saying yes to everything because you're afraid that you might make somebody upset, you might stir the pot, you might miss out on another opportunity. So basically what this is we're trying to survive. It's that basic need for survival. And we're not realizing that we live in an abundant universe where if we do say no, and when we realize that something is not right for us or not good for us, then there are other opportunities that may open up for us in the future or whatever it might be. Now on to the good stuff, guys. I want to explain a little bit about what it looks like. I know we've touched on this a little bit, but what it looks like to become an empowered empath. you begin to truly step into that authentic expression of yourself. So you move from being disempowered to empowered. You begin to learn what things are good for you, what's not good for you, what you'll accept and what you won't accept, and you begin to become better at making decisions for yourself. So everything basically in the previous dynamic gets switched around 180, and you begin to become your own person who does things for yourself. You are not worried about what other people may say or think, and you are not worried about pleasing anybody else. You're able to find that sense of validation and approval from within. Another important thing that was a huge life changer for me was being able to recognize my own emotional state, so that when I was around other people who were maybe out of sorts, and I began to pick up with my antenna all of these different emotions and feel them in my body, I was able to tell myself, that's not mine. That's not mine. No, there's no reason for me to be upset today. I have everything in line in my life. And even if there was a little thing going on in my life that upset me maybe earlier in the day, compare it with the emotion that you're experiencing. This is a very heavy emotion. That is just a little guy over here. And it's nothing to be worried about because we dealt with that earlier in the day, not later. So there are just different things that you learn to do. You begin to work with these energies, these different emotions that your antennas are picking up on. And that is the most empowering thing because you begin to say, no, I know who I am. This is my center. So you know who you are, you feel into your own energetic field, and you know when other things come into your field and what is yours and what is not. You stop taking every little damn thing so personally. You stop trying to fix people. You let people deal with their own circumstances and their own things on their own because you realize that that's what we're all here to do anyways. This is Earth School, baby. We are here to learn, and you allow other people the sense of feeling empowered because really honestly, when we're always trying to step in and fix other people anyways, when you think about it from this perspective, this new empowered empath perspective, you realize that how selfish of me to believe that that person doesn't have the power within them to help themselves. Like you're basically, and I know this can sound a little harsh, you know, when we're not in an empowered state, but like that other person is powerful too. And basically we're saying like, sorry, but you're not able to do this, so I'm gonna step in and save you. And that can be, I don't know, it's kind of rude when you really think about it in that sense. And then you'll notice when this dynamic shifts for you and when you truly begin to understand that you are an empowered empath, you don't need to step in and fix anybody. And you actually start going out into the world, you'll notice that people like want to be around you. People want to begin voicing things to you. And you won't get as many relationship dynamics where, you know, the other person relies on you for you to take on their energy because they can psychically sense as well, whether they realize it or not, if you are healed within and you take this empowered stance. All right, guys, finally, we're gonna talk about what you can do to become more of an empowered empath. So number one, I think one of the most important things that we need to do day in and day out is make it a point to have a mindfulness practice. And all that mindfulness is, it's actually very simple. It's just bringing constant awareness of who you are in every moment. So really taking the time to like be more present, more embodied in yourself, which is taking a look at the thoughts that are going through your mind. Take a look at your behaviors and your reactions, what triggers you, what upsets you. And it can really be helpful to have a journaling practice or maybe just set aside time to do mindfulness meditation. Even if you're laying in bed at night, you can do what I call a reflective meditation where you reflect on all the events that happened over the course of your day, so that you can kind of see how everything played out. Not in a non-judgmental way. So you're not taking a judgmental stance here. You're just observing everything that happened and your reactions. And then also other people's reactions to you, how you responded, what you did, what decisions you made. And then you can begin to decipher through these journaling exercises, these meditations, or both, what your values are, what you like and dislike, what drains your energy, and what lifts you up. And then you can begin to start making decisions, which leads me into my next tip, which is setting clear and proper boundaries with other people. Now that you know what you will and won't accept, what you do and don't like, you can begin to install these boundaries into your life. You have to get very clear with yourself and with the people that you have in your life, and be prepared for a big time shift when you do this, because it's not necessarily easy when other people are used to this whole codependency dynamic playing out a certain way. Because believe it or not, they become dependent on the situation as well. They become dependent on you behaving the way that you're behaving. So when you withdraw that behavior and you change the dynamic, this could cause a reaction in the other person. But you can't always look at it as a negative. You are removing toxicity from your life, which then in return empowers that other person while empowering you at the same time. So while there might be a little bit of discomfort initially, it will overall turn out to be a very, very positive thing. And you'll see things start to shift. And if you do lose people out of your life, it's totally fine, because the universe will replace those people and those dynamics and give you something that is more aligned with who you are now and who you're becoming now that you have empowered yourself. All right, guys, moving on to my next tip. You absolutely, as an empath, must take time to be alone. And this is imperative. Even if you live in a household full of people, you, my dear, have to make it a priority to have alone time. Whether it is an hour where you close the door, put on some soundproof headphones where you have to block out all the noise, even if you just lay in your bed and do nothing, whatever, you have to be alone, because empaths are like batteries. It's kind of a weird comparison there, but yeah, empaths are like batteries. Our batteries get very drained really easily, so we have to always have that source that we plug ourselves back into to recharge and to process everything. So if we go out for an evening, which when you are empowered, it's okay to go out if you want into environments that, you know, like a club, say you really enjoy doing something like that. If that is something you want to do, that's fine. Just make sure that you take the time to sit down, get some rest, sit in quiet, process. All right, second to last tip here. You need to take time to do something creative, something that lights you up, that lights your fire from within. And if you are on your way to becoming an empowered empath and you don't quite know what that is yet, try some things. I remember when I did not have hobbies, so I would try to wrap myself up in other people's hobbies, which did not quite light me up because it wasn't my authentic self. It was this false self. And once I was on my road to becoming an empowered empath, I would try anything that piqued my interest. One time it just worked for me. I tried an aerial yoga class that my mom signed me up for, and come to find out, yoga was something I was extremely passionate about and is now one of my most favorite hobbies and things that is extremely important in my life. I've also found other things like astrology, so different methodologies of helping you figure out who you are and helping you learn to empower yourself more, like astrology, numerology, or tarot cards. And it doesn't even have to be anything like this. It could be fishing or cooking, but I'm just giving you guys an idea. You have to have designated time where you're not wrapped up in other people's lives and you find something that you truly like, where you're able to express yourself. Last but not least, this ties in with a couple of the things that I've already discussed on this list, is taking time for self-care, which is putting yourself first. And that is most important. So doing some of these activities I discussed, like finding a hobby or taking time to be alone, would be taking time to put yourself first. And that is the number one most important thing in becoming an empowered empath, my friends. So I hope so much that you found this information valuable and that you'll be able to use it in your everyday life to become more empowered, to become stronger, and to gain that EQ, that emotional intelligence that I speak of. And my whole life changed, I tell you, in the most amazing ways once I found out all of this information and I turned this knowledge into wisdom. If there's anything I can help you with, please leave me a comment below. Make sure you tap the like button if you benefited, and stay tuned for lots more content coming your way. Peace.